everyone and welcome back to Aussie Starcraft. Today we'll be bringing you some more games from WCS Korea Season 2 Round of 8. This time we have a Protoss vs Terran game of PvT. In the top left hand corner we have Rain playing for SK Telecom 1, and in the bottom right hand corner as the blue Terran we have Supernova playing for Team Azubu. Now these players, obviously both very high level players, making it through to the round of 8 in WCS. Rain actually probably the better known of these two. In the last little while, Rain's managed to knock up about $100,000 in winnings across various major and premier tournaments. Supernova also performing fairly well in a number of events recently. He's managed to win about $20,000 in prizes. All of that, though, does pale in comparison to the prize money that's up for grabs today. This round of WCS will be worth $20,000 to the player that manages to win the final. So both these players only a few rounds away from substantially improving their winnings for this year. Now you have Rain throwing down his gateway on the high ground. Very standard openings from both players. Supernova dropping a barracks himself and a refinery. Likely to see a Reaper scout out of Supernova. Terran going for gas this early generally means going for some Reapers or some sort of crazy proxy play. I would expect at this level of play we will indeed see some Reapers being used to scout. The map is Belshir Vestige, so quite a well balanced map for both these races. Natural's quite easy to expand, so you see a lot of Protoss doing forge fast expand and other strategies allowing them to secure that and make two base plays fairly confidently. The Terran fairly liable to drop an early macro CC and secure theirs as well with a bunker. Third base a little bit harder to secure on this one. There's two alternate locations. A third base down here in the bottom left or up here above the main, both with various strengths and weaknesses. If you take this base down here, you're vulnerable to attack from two angles, one of which shares some ramps with your natural. But if you take the third base up here, likewise multiple angles of attack, you're very vulnerable from the top to any air units, as well as, for example, if Supernova takes this as his third, he could well face harassment from here while he's facing pressure on his natural from these ramps here. You can see Supernova throwing down his command center on the low ground, and he's got up an early reactor. Oh, two Reapers on the way. That's a bit interesting. Normally you'll see one for scouting, two is a bit unusual, but we'll see what he's got in mind for those. Scouting out in multiple directions with those Reapers, obviously looking for any proxy pylons or sneaky shenanigans that Rain might be up to. Players on this map are quite fond of proxying stargates in this location, then nicking down into the base for some very quick worker harass. Well, you see that Rain hasn't gone for any of that. His first Stalker's out, Mothership Core also on the map. Just going to try and deny any sight for these Reapers as they make it up to the base. Stalker is on patrol. Going to try and drive away these Reapers when they make a run for the base. As of yet, not a whole lot of scouting going on for either of these players. Rain has no idea there's an expansion here yet. Probably figures one has been thrown down based on the timing, but has yet to check that out. Supernova likewise knows there's likely to be an expansion here on the low ground, but as of what tech path Rain's taking, still needing to scan or get those Reapers through into the base. Now see two Stalkers on the low ground. If we check the production tab, we can see that an observer is on the way for Rain, and he'll likely use that to get a better indication of what Supernova's up to. A few Marines moving out with this force and a few Hellions. Bit of a mixed bag of units. Not a very common sort of composition. It's possible that Supernova will try and take the damage on these Reapers where they can recover, but a photon overcharge on the Nexus will drive that right back. these few Marines here dying horrible deaths as the photon overcharge kicks in. Another Marine picked off by the Stalkers. Now, with Rain doing his best to abuse the faster movement speed of these Stalkers. One of them manages to get picked off by the Reapers, but both players will stabilise, and Rain seems fairly content to stay in his base, just macroing up hard. See him chrono boosting probes out of both his Nexus, and dropping his his +1 armour upgrade. Fairly standard against Terran to do armour before weapons, as it does give your gateway units a lot more survivability. If we take a look at what Supernova's up to, we can see factory on the way, with 3 more barracks in production. Stimpack also being researched, so very likely we'll... Oh, Hellions ducking through into this expansion. We do see 15 workers killed by Supernova. Excellent run by with those Hellions, but the photon overcharge and these Stalkers very likely to clear up the last of these Hellions. A bit surprising they actually got as many kills as he did with the Stalkers on patrol and a photon cannon in the mineral line, but excellent control there from Supernova to get 16 worker kills, giving him quite an edge in this game. If we look at the income tab, you can see that it's now 42 harvesters to 38, so a lot of those chrono boosted workers that Rain was pushing out earlier did in fact die, bringing the game down to a much more level playing field. We can see mules in play for Supernova, taking his income right up to almost 1800, so he's got quite a significant income mining advantage at this point in the game. Can't see a third CC on the way yet, but heavy saturation in both Supernova's bases, so very likely that we'll see him powering the production off these barracks and factories and go for some sort of biomine play. No factory yet no reactor on the factory as of yet, but Starport is churning out medevacs. We have an observer here from Rain just checking out the scenery. Does manage to spot some of these additional barracks that are going down. Did manage to spot one of the 2 of them anyway. He will catch these Marines and medevacs moving out, so he does know he needs to warp in some additional units for defense. He has a Colossus that he's chrono boosting out, also throwing down a Twilight Council. If we pop it back on the shared vision, we can see 2 medevacs bursting in, going for a drop. This is very likely to be forced by a Colossus. Here is going... Oh, if he's not careful... Yep, we can see that Supernova does indeed pull back, knowing that with that Colossus and the other gateway units in play, he's very unlikely to be able to make a successful drop there on the ledge. This observer moving out, looking for this bio. A bit of an early stim there. I don't think there's really a whole lot of damage Supernova can do with this, and we do see his bio getting caught by those excellent force fields and picked off by Rain without any losses on his side. Check out the units lost tab. It is almost leveled out, with Sulky now having... Sorry, not Sulky. Supernova having lost slightly more than Rain, 1500 minerals to 1200. These Marines and Marauders still trying to stay active, picking off Zealots here and there, trying to do a few multi-prong drop, but Rain still has some gateway units sitting up here to push those back, and in fact is going to throw down an extra photon cannon to help ward off those pesky drops. You can see Supernova's now thrown down his 3rd base over in this location. Players tend to favour this for their 3rd. It's just a little bit easier to defend than this location up here. Usually their army will be positioned somewhere up here, and that will allow them to cut off at least one avenue of attack against this 3rd base. You can see this observer's still doing a lot of spotting for Rain. Give him an idea of when this Terran force will be moving out. You can see Vikings being produced now, 2 at a time. So they will tend to... they're being produced to counter these Colossus. And if we check out the production tab, we can in fact see that Rain, not intending to stay on this Colossus tech for very long, he's produced 2 of them, but that's it. Now dropped his Templar archives and has Storm on the way. So that current PvT metagame, you tend to drop a Colossus or 2 and try and force the Terran to mass produce Vikings. Then you switch to High Templars, which allows you to storm the bio, and it leaves these Vikings without a whole lot to do. They kill a Colossus and then spend the rest of the fight just hovering down, doing a whole lot of nothing. A few Zealots making their way down to this third base, just trying to be a bit of a pest, but that bunker will be able to hold those off all day. Big storm from the High Templar there, gets 10 kills. That's bad news for Supernova. He's moving up and a stim from the Marauders to catch that High Templar. He will try and heal up this bio before pushing any further. Bit of a scan to see where the Protoss army is at. Is in fact defending this more vulnerable third base, while Supernova tries to be a bit of a pain with some Warp Prism harass, warping a number of Zealots into the main base. He does get a few worker kills of his own and takes out that missile turret, leaving Supernova exposed to future Warp Prism harass there. If we check out the production tab, I imagine we'll see another Warp Prism on the way. Not just yet, but he has managed to clean that up and do some damage to the production of Supernova. Have some Zealots doing some multi-prong harass at the same time as those Zealots hit the main base. We have Zealots at the third base harassing this command center, almost able to force a cancel, down to just 80 hit points there as it's under construction. Rain would really like to pick that off and stop the Terran from taking another base. 3-base Protoss versus 3-base Terran does tend to come out quite favourably for the Protoss, with their burst damage from the Colossus and Templar making them very cost efficient against Terran in the mid to late game. Terran generally quite successful and powerful against Protoss in the mid game stages from about 11 to 20 minute mark, but unfortunately for Supernova, after that early Hellion harass that he got in, he hasn't managed to do a whole lot to delay the macro of Rain. So now moving into the later game stage, where if things don't change for him, he will start to struggle. Some great storms thrown down there from Rain, making mincemeat out of most of the Marines in this force. Still have quite a heavy Marauder composition left in this army, but many of the Marines wearing those storms has culled their numbers significantly. And see Marines 3 at a time and Ghosts 3 at a time being produced. A few well-placed EMPs could do significant damage to Rain's little death ball that he's got going here. See both players leveled out at about 190 supply, and Supernova now willing to commit to an attack here. He's caught in the choke point, which is a horrible positioning for him. These Vikings doing damage to the Colossus, but they really need to focus these down. Shooting one at a time, both those Vikings got off a lot more shots than they should have, and I believe Supernova's paying the price for that here. These two Colossus still on the field, and another warp in of Zealots from the flank. We indeed find that if we check the units lost tab, we do see that indeed Rain came off very well in that engagement. If you're going to fight Protoss, you've got to get a concave going. You can't afford to fight them across this sort of choke point. They'll cut your army in half and kill it all day long with Storms and Colossus. A little bit of micro from Supernova might have seen those Colossus die a lot earlier. Unfortunately for him, he was focused on microing his Marines and Marauders, and those two Colossus on red health got off a lot more shots than they probably should have. You can see Rain, now that he'd killed most of the Vikings, felt a bit more confident with his Colossus. He did in fact produce some more, and is now looking to pressure the front with this Archon Stalker Zealot Colossus mix that he's got going. Still only 4 Vikings on the field. We see Supernova pulling off his SCVs, obviously very concerned at the damage that he could do. He is behind at this stage, but is hoping these SCVs will be able to absorb a few shots from the Colossus. An EMP from the Ghost does drop the shields on these Archon, allows a few of them to be picked off. We can see the bulk of this force is quite injured, so this isn't going to go. Engaging here is just not ideal for Supernova. Getting Archons killing those Vikings very quickly, these Colossus able to micro backwards, and just phenomenal amount of kills. 17 kills on one Colossus, 10 on another, and 9 on the third. Just every shot from these Colossus doing massive damage to this Terran force. Another Supernova has managed to break through with those with those workers, able to absorb a few of the shots, and is able to put pressure on this fourth base of Rain. Not to be outdone though, Rain's warped in another lot of Zealots and has indeed killed off the third base, well, forced it to lift off here. With the SCVs pulled off the second base, we can see that the income for Supernova is almost non-existent. At this stage it's an all or nothing for Supernova, and he's pushing with everything he's got. If Rain can hold at his third base, he'll have this game in the bag. Quite a heavy number of ghosts here. These Archons could go down quite quickly. Some well placed EMPs, see them shieldless on 10 HP, and they'll die very quickly. Rain forced to pull off some of his own probes. Photon Overcharge doing great work. 3 kills on the Nexus, something we didn't see a lot of in Starcraft 2, but new to Heart of the Swarm. Nexus with kills, a bit unusual, but not able to save itself. It seems like he might manage the impossible here. Supernova pushing forward with this Marauder Ghost composition. 58 supply to 77, but some well placed EMPs just wrecking these High Templar. One more Colossus brought down, probes being pulled off the mineral line. It's all or nothing here for Rain. Can he push back this force? These Vikings, just every shot they get off doing massive damage to the Colossus. Just in spite of all we thought to the contrary, it's turned into a full-on base race. But Rain's forced to GG out of the games. His Zealot counterattack's just not able to do substantial damage. I say, what an excellent comeback from Supernova. He really needed to do the damage in the mid game, but after that early Hellion harass, Rain seemed to have his number for everything he tried. But crunch time, pulling his SCVs off the line, managed to buy him an extra few shots, a few seconds in the fight that he needed to break through that Protoss death ball. So excellent game out of Supernova to take this series, to take a lead in this series, 1-0 over Rain. Tune in for the next game where we'll see if Rain can equalise this set, or if Supernova will be able to run away with these series. A lot of the games we've seen so far from WCS Korea haven't been very back and forward. Some of these series have tended to be 3-0 or 2-0 runs from the winner to knock out the opposing player. So I'm hoping this series proves to be a little bit more back and forth than those. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you next game.